am going to teach you guys tonight how to make some really fun things. I love seeing all these kids in the kitchen with their families. How much fun is that? I see we have some really excited ones even dancing in the kitchen today. So we're going to start with the lemon olive oil cake. I'm going to put up on the screen the ingredient list in case some of you missed it. So why don't you guys take a quick little look through that to make sure you guys have all your ingredients out that you're going to need. All right. So olive oil cakes are really interesting. They're replacing all the fat in the cake, usually made with cakes are usually made with butter. And the olive oil gives it a nice fruity texture and gives it a nice light crumb. And it's also a really nice light flavor, especially for this time of year. Okay, I'll put that up again later if you guys are having problems seeing it. So we are going to start with a nice bowl in front of us. Everyone got a nice big mixing bowl. Yep, get our bowls. And we are going to take out our flour. I'm actually doing this a little bit backwards from how the recipe says it, but that's because it's a lot easier to do it this way. So I have some measuring cups here. I have a question. See this? People always think you can measure everything in a measuring cup that looks like this. This is what you measure dry ingredients. When I mean dry ingredients, I mean things like flour, spices, even sugar is considered, gets mixed in with the wet ingredients, but it's considered a dry ingredient when you measure it. Cups like this are for anything liquid. They don't have the same, even though they say the same things on them, but volume-wise, you end up getting different measurements. And that's how come sometimes maybe baking recipes don't come out the way you guys hope. I don't know. So if you have a measuring cup like this, why don't you get that? And the best way to do flour is not to stick your cup in and take a big scoop out of the flour. It's not a good idea because then it compresses it down and you literally start putting more and more flour into your recipe. And then the ratios are off. Baking isn't like cooking. It's more of a science. So everything has to be just perfect. So I always take a spoonful of flour and start filling it up. So let's fill it up and start doing 1 cup at a time. So can we do 1 cup at a time with a... So once you get to the top, you can level it off with the edge of the spoon or the back of a knife, whatever you prefer. So we're going to do this and we're going to level it nice off, nice and even, so that everything's even. You guys still with me? All right, looks like everyone's doing good. All right, so we need 2 cups of flour, so let's try it one more time. Let's see if you guys can get your technique perfect. All right, just gently level it in. This way we don't compress it and we get the right measurements. This also makes for a nice light crumb in the cake and not a very dense one. We always want cakes to be nice and light and fluffy. All right, so 2 cups in the bowl. Now, for the other dry ingredients, I have some spices on the list. I have nutmeg and cinnamon. I know I have the measurement for cinnamon, but I always put in a little extra because cinnamon's literally like my favorite thing to put in baked goods. Especially, it's really good for anti-inflammatory properties. It's good for your digestion. So if any of you have been feeling a little achy lately or any of your bones, cinnamon's great. And nutmeg, oh, it just smells like the holidays to me. So we're gonna add that in.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Was it 2 or 3 cups of flour?
2.
Excellent, thank you.
No problem. Guys, feel free to ask questions if you need to, or send Alira some messages.
Is the pasta supposed to be already cooked? for the macaroni and cheese?
We're baking first.
Okay, so we don't have to boil, do we have to boil the pasta first?
No, well, yeah, we will when we get to that recipe,
Okay.
but baking first. Most of the time you start, when you're making a dinner party and you're actually cooking, you always start with baking first, believe it or not, because it usually takes the longest and you want it ready for the end of the meal.
Okay, I just didn't know if I should be boiling the pasta now while we're doing this.
If you want to get some water boiling, you can.
Yeah, I did that. Thanks.
Okay. So we're gonna get out our baking powder, and we need 1 teaspoon of baking powder at a time. So don't try to measure 2 at a time, do 1 at a time. So we have 2 teaspoons all together, but you need to measure them separately so you can make sure that you get everything all together. So in it goes. And we're gonna add a pinch of salt. So we add a pinch of salt in baking. Does anyone actually know why you add a pinch of salt in any baked good? Anybody have any guesses? No, I see a lot of heads going, oh no. Salt brings out sweet. So on your taste buds, when you're eating things, like if you're making something with chocolate or you're making something, anything with sugar, kind of like when you have a sea salt candy bar, a chocolate bar with sea salt on it, or things are flecked with sea salt, it brings out the sweetness. Without salt, so that's why we always put salt in baking ingredients. So as far as the salt, we're going to do a half a teaspoon. Half a teaspoon of salt. If you can eyeball it, go for it. If you can't, don't. We don't ever want to eyeball ingredients if it's not your strong suit. So once we get everything in the bowl,
Ashley, 1 second. I'm
show
sorry.
me your whisk.
How much cinnamon and nutmeg again? I don't
Okay,
have that right.
so there's a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. But if you like a little more cinnamon, it's okay. Sometimes I bump it up to a half teaspoon. All right, so we're gonna mix the whisk into the dry ingredients. So we start whisking, whisking, whisking away. So
Did you have cinnamon and nutmeg?
cinnamon and nutmeg. Okay. So it's a 1/4 teaspoon of each. So the reason that we whisk everything together is so that we get an even amount of the rising agent throughout the flour. Because you ever see a lopsided cake? That's because somebody didn't whisk their dry ingredients together, and they may have ended up with some rising agent more in one spot, or if you're putting spices like as much as love it in one spot and only a teeny bit in another. This is to make sure everything's all incorporated. So just whisk it together a little bit. Once the spices look well combined and the baking powder is all in there, just set it aside and we can move on to the wet ingredients. All right, we have another bowl. Do we have another bowl? I know, I'm gonna make you do dishes. I'm sorry. This is just the way baking goes. All right. Yes, all right, all our wet ingredients are gonna go in here. So, wet ingredients start with a cup of sugar. I am using raw sugar. I'm gonna see if I can show you this without pouring it all over my computer. So if you can see the color of the raw sugar is what sugar looks like before it's stripped down and turns white. There is actually some more nutrient value in raw sugar than there is in white sugar because that's already stripped and bleached and done all kinds of fun things to. So if you're gonna use sugar, I would stick with raw sugar. I would also use, you can also replace coconut sugar in this recipe. It's not quite a 1-to-1 ratio, but you can use maybe a 1 1/2 cups if you're using coconut sugar. All right, so we get that in. We need 3 eggs. Does everybody have their 3 eggs out? All right, so to crack an egg, you don't crack. When you crack an egg, you crack it on a flat surface. You always want to crack an egg on a flat surface, because if you crack an egg on the edge of a bowl, you end up pushing the little pieces on the inside, and that's how the shell cracks more. If you crack on a flat surface, you'll get a more even crack. And if you do happen to get a little more shell in there, shell attracts shell. So if you're worried about getting any shell in there, I would put a little piece of shell in it, and it'll help get out the other piece of shell. They're literally attracted to each other like magnets. That way you don't have to go digging in there with your spoon or your fingers trying to get it out. How many of us have made scrambled eggs and literally been like spooning around a little bowl trying to get the little egg pieces out? It's the easiest thing in the world. It's the most amazing thing to watch too. Sometimes I do it to show like little. So how is everyone doing? Are we all the way up to the cup of sugar in the second bowl? Yeah, I see thumbs up from people. All right, we're good. All right, so now we need to crack 3 eggs. So we're gonna mix in 3 eggs, 3/4 cup of olive oil. You want a nice high quality olive oil for a cake like this. Cakes like this is all about the flavor of the olive oil. So adding more in is the best way to do it, adding a good quality one. Not one that you typically cook with, but something you'd make a dressing with or maybe finish off a plate with. So 3/4 cup is gonna go in. All right. Now we're gonna go with.
Sorry, can I interrupt? You said 3/8 cup of something? Or 3/4 cup?
3/4 cup.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. And then we have our vanilla, which, oh, I love the smell of vanilla, but you know what? The thing about vanilla, don't ever try it without putting it in a recipe. Vanilla does not taste good on its own. People have learned the hard way doing that, so please don't do that. So we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of vanilla. And a 1/2 cup of milk. So whatever milk you're using, whatever milk you use, please do not use skim milk. Skim milk in baking does not work out well. Skim milk is like, bake with it, it doesn't hold things together. So you're gonna want a 1/2 cup of milk. So we're gonna put that into the wet ingredients. Now that we have them all combined, we are going to take our trusty whisk again and start mixing for dear life until everybody's all combined and yummy together. This helps everything become smooth. This also helps when you mix your dry and wet ingredients together. Yep.
Quick question. Were we supposed to already add the 3 eggs?
Yes.
That would make sense. Cool, thanks.
Perfect. All right. So once we're mixing it together and it's well combined, the reason that we do a wet and a dry mix is so when the cake comes together as one, you're handling it less. Have you ever eaten a really dense cake that it's so dense it's more like a brownie? This is how you get light, fluffy, yummy cakes. So now that it's all combined and yummy together.
Should we warm our ovens up?
Yes, to 350. I'm sorry, I forgot that step because my oven was already on. That's my fault. You can blame me. So once it's all combined, it's gonna look like this. Can we all see? Maybe not. Oh, don't wanna. All right. So once everything's combined, we need each bowl together. We're gonna make a lovely marriage. But before we do, we possess our
I'm sorry, can we ask real quick? So we have some dry white stuff in one bowl, and we have the wet stuff in another bowl. Did you mix them together yet?
Nope, we're just about to do that.
Okay.
So we need our trusty lemon and our trusty lemon zester. All right, I see some of you are with me. So when we zest a lemon, there is a lovely white part underneath, as I am doing. See that lovely white part? You do not want to do that and put it in. It's called the pip. It is bitter. So when you do this, you zest in one spot. When you zest one spot and turn, one spot and turn. This is how you avoid getting any of that bitter flavor in there. To get about a tablespoon of zest is pretty much the whole lemon. And just a little tip, I've seen so many people do this. They cut their lemon in half before they zest it. We zest the outside of the lemon before we cut it. I'm going to repeat that again. We zest the outside of the lemon before we cut it. It's so much easier. This is like free flavor on the outside. This is like the lemon essence and oil. You ever smelled essential oils? Like, this is what it is. This is where it comes from, not the juice, the oil. So let's get zesting. So we zest and turn, zest and turn. There we go. I like to see that wrist action. Carrie, you're doing a great job. I can see it. Yes. All right. We're zesting and turning. There we go. Make sure that you are washing your lemons before you use them. Please tell me you guys wash things. We don't want any pesticides or any bad things in there. So just get all the lemon zest out of there and into the dry. And we're gonna cut our lovely lemon in half. A tablespoon of juice of the lemon.
Does the zest go in the dry or the wet ingredients?
It actually goes in the dry because then the oils will start seeping into the dry ingredients. The juice will go in the wet ingredients. So
Okay.
if you don't have one of those fancy juicers, which mine actually broke, you squeeze the lemon cut side up. So if you see this here, it's the cut side up. All the pits should stay with the lemon. If your lemon feels really tight and not really juicy, roll it on the counter a little bit with your hand so that it starts releasing some of the juice and it'll come out a lot better. So I'm gonna squeeze my lovely lemon and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So yeah, about half of it will be about a tablespoon of juice. So, as I'm making a mess, but if you look really closely, I don't want this to drip everywhere. The pits came out, but they stayed on top of the lemon, which is such a cool thing because that way it's one of the less things that you are chasing around. I see Kristen has the fancy lemon juicer. I do not have that. Mine broke. I dropped it. Yes. See, if you have something like she has, that's perfect. You can use that.
And does this go into the dry as well?
No, the juice will go in the wet. The zest goes in the dry. Are
Ashley,
y'all still with me? Yep.
sure. Which way do you put the lemon? Down or up?
Down.
Down. Okay.
Yeah, there's some. The cut side goes down in a juicer. People have some strong feelings about that. All right. Now it is time to make a lovely marriage. This is where things get interesting. It is always dry into wet. The reason for this is so that there is less manhandling of the batter and that there's no way to build up the gluten. It's kind of like the opposite effect of making bread. In bread, you want to build up the gluten, but with cakes, you don't want the gluten to build up. So we put half the dry ingredients in, just half first. And we're going to fold it in, half of it. So folding. Folding is a technique that you do half, kind of like you're doing a big circle and then you cut through the middle, or almost like a figure 8. And you want this to be mostly incorporated. before you put in the second half. So you don't want to work the batter too much. Over mixing here. All right, I'm gonna put in my second half of my batter. Put that out of the way. Now, mixing it all together. How are we doing, guys? Not making a nice cake batter? It's not a very thick batter. I know it takes a little extra elbow grease and a little extra work. This is a great time. Baking is a great thing to do with kids. One, it teaches fractions. Two, you can help even the little ones. You can show them the line on the thing and you can help them pour stuff in. Even the little kids, like toddlers, can help you spoon out flour if you don't mind a little bit of extra mess in the kitchen. And yes, they do make a little bit of a mess, but I don't mind it. So now, you need a 9x5 loaf.
Oh, we do want
Loaf pans ready, everyone?
Can you confirm, was the lemon just a half or was it the whole lemon?
Just the half. The half
Okay.
gives off about a tablespoon of juice. A whole lemon gives off around 2 tablespoons or so. So we need our trusty dusty 9x5 loaf pans. You're gonna put some parchment in the bottom so that it comes out more easily. I sometimes put an overhang so that you can just lift the cake right out with the parchment, which is something you can do. Make sure you spray the inside with cooking spray. So any cooking spray is good, whatever you work, whatever your favorite is.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? The wet ingredients, you had us fold it. Are we supposed to whisk it now, or?
No.
You just stir it like a stir
For
until,
all the, you don't see any streaks of flour, and then we're gonna put it into the 9x5.
okay. So we don't whisk it like a beater.
She said no.
No. Yep. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. It's just not the type of thing you do. I like this cake because there's no equipment involved, and it's really light for summer and spring, and you can just serve it with some berries, or you can eat it by itself with some coffee or tea. And it's also a great cake that freezes well. So if you're on your own, you can like maybe leave half out and freeze the other half, or if you're a couple. That's something I always like, that if I make a dessert and it's just me, that I can just freeze some things. Plus, I'm all for anything that doesn't involve a lot of equipment or me cleaning my beaters or any of that stuff. So we get it in our trusty loaf pan over here, and we're gonna bake it at 350 for 55 to 60 minutes. You want a toothpick to come out with only a little bit of crumbs stuck to it. So I would check it at 50 minutes because everyone's ovens are just a little bit different. There's like hot spots in certain areas. My oven's a little bit older, so if I don't put it like dead center, things have a tendency to burn and I need to rotate it halfway through. Some of you may have gas, some of you may have electric, so stoves and ovens cook a little bit at different rates. So I just make sure you check it at 50 minutes and then see how much longer it needs from there. So I'm gonna put mine in and then we'll entertain some questions.
I'm sorry, did you grease the sides of the pan at all?
Yeah, I said spray it with cooking spray.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep. So do we have any questions right now that we can go over? Any questions about the recipe so far? Anybody have any questions they want to go over? Anything they want to ask?
Are you?
Will we be baking the mac and cheese at the same temperature at the same time as the cake?
You actually don't have to bake the mac and cheese unless you want to make it brown on top. I know.
King. Okay. Thank you.
Are we
Yep.
putting parchment paper on all the sides of the pan or just
Just the
end?
bottom, and you can have it go up the sides a little so that way it's easy to come out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that came up that we should go over?
Nothing has come up yet.
Okay.
It looks like everything has been addressed. I'm just scanning really quickly. Yep, we're good.
All right. So once we get that in, you'll have the nice smell of vanilla and lemon through your house, kind of like one of those fun scented candles. So now that everything is in, once everybody gets it in, let's get all of our stuff out and we're gonna make some mac and cheese. It's time to make dinner. We made dessert. Now it's time to eat dinner. For the next recipe. Alrighty. All right, I'm ready to go. How about you guys? We getting there? Some mac and cheese. Who's excited? Who loves cheese, by the way? I couldn't help it. I was shredding cheese earlier in preparation for this, and I was stealing pieces of cheese while we were doing it. Anybody have a cheese allergy I need to know about, or dairy issues so that I can figure it out? All right. Does anybody need any substitutions? How many of you are making the classic mac and cheese, and how many of you are going to make the cauliflower mac and cheese? You're doing the classic?
I'm
Who's
doing,
making
Cauliflower.
Okay.
I'm gonna do cauliflower too.
Classic.
Okay.
I already have the riced cauliflower.
Oh, that works too.
You can buy it.
Yeah, it works. All right.
Out of curiosity, how important is the parchment paper? Since mine, I didn't cut it long enough, so it's now gone behind it. So I'm just going to tip it out.
It's fine. I mean, it'll just be a little harder to get out. But if you spray it really well, it should come out. The cake usually comes out pretty easy. I mean, if it's just for you and your...
Let's pretend I didn't spray it at all because I don't have any cooking spray.
It may not come out very well. Maybe
That's
try
what I
some
thought.
butter on the outside.
Oh, it's already in there, so it doesn't matter. It will be fine.
It may not be a looker. When you try to get it out, it may not look pretty, but it'll taste great.
Well, the problem is the parchment paper was too low, so it went over it didn't come out on the other. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's going to be a disaster, but it'll taste okay.
I can guarantee it'll taste good as long as you measured everything well. That's all that matters. Here's the thing about cooking, everyone. That when you are cooking, sometimes we have disasters or we don't do things quite right. But as long as it tastes good and things may not be a looker, it's okay. And if you're with your family, nobody needs to know. Julia Child said you're the only one in the kitchen. Nobody knows if you drop stuff on the floor.
Oh, do we have to wait for it to be preheated?
The oven should be to 350. And now we should be getting water out to boil.
Don't put it in until it's preheated, right?
Yeah, to 350 if your ovens aren't. So let's start with the mac and cheese. We are going to need pasta, cauliflower if you don't have cauliflower. We're going to need cheddar cheese, onion powder, Dijon mustard, salt, pepper, Monterey Jack. Yes, Nancy, I see you raising your hand.
Just how many minutes for the cake?
50.
50?
But it shows about 55 to 60 depending on your oven type.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, let's get a pot of water on the stove and boiling if you didn't have it going already while we were talking. So I'm going to start talking about some small head of cauliflower that I've washed. You can do the rice cauliflower, that works too, but I'm just going to start cutting it up into little florets, and I'm going to just throw it in some boiling salted water. Why do we salt our water? That's a question a lot of people ask. Why do you salt your water? It helps stuff not to stick together, and it's the only way that you can get flavor into your pasta. It's the only way that you can get flavor into something that you are steaming or boiling, say the cauliflower. The reason is pasta does need flavor. Pasta is just kind of boring on its own, and pasta water with a little bit of salt and the starch it gives off is a great, how should I put it, a great secret weapon in the kitchen. It's a great way to help you marry sauces together to pasta, or maybe thin out a sauce if it's too thick. It's a wonderful thing to use. So I just have some lovely salted boiling water, and I'm gonna put in some little florets of cauliflower. The smaller you cut them, the better it comes out.
Are you putting the cauliflower in the water that you're gonna put the pasta in?
Yep.
Okay.
One pot, no more extra dishes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I'm gonna get this in with my little florets that I'm making a mess of. Yeah, I know, cutting up cauliflower makes a mess. I fully embrace it.
Ashley, I want it, so we can do the pasta and the cauliflower all in one pot?
Yep.
Okay.
Once you take the cauliflower out of that pot, you can use the same water for the pasta. It's all going to the same place. All right, so we're gonna put this in the boiling water, the little florets. That's all you need to know about them for now. They're gonna go have a nice little hot tub and, you know, get happy. So while they're in their nice little steam bath, let's go make sure that everyone has all their ingredients out. And everyone has a pot of water boiling? Perfect. So I'm gonna go over a few different things because we're making two different mac and cheeses, and they're remarkably similar, but there's a little bit of a difference in each of them. The cauliflower mac and cheese is a little bit lighter. I mean, they're both a lightened up version of mac and cheese, but I mean, these each only have 2 cups of cheese in them, whereas most mac and cheeses have at least 4 plus. You can add more cheese. I'm not in your kitchen. I'm not policing you. I won't tell you you can't add more cheese. So we are gonna start by making a sauce. So if you have a sauce, it's what we call a white sauce. It starts with 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter for the classic mac and cheese. You also need 4 tablespoons of flour out if you can have it ready before you start. We're gonna need an onion for the classic mac and cheese. And we're gonna need milk and salt and pepper.
I'm sorry, quick question.
Yep.
Are we using a bowl for the sauce or an actual saucepan?
Saucepan.
Saucepan.
We are gonna make a roux to start to thicken up a white sauce. These are those fancy cream sauces that people make. It all starts off that way. Oh,
Are we
somebody
using a whole pound of pasta?
you can make a whole pound of pasta, but you don't have to like use it all today if you don't want.
Okay, I just didn't know what the rest
But it does make a whole pound. It's really great to actually put in like a baking dish and freeze.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's get going. I'm going to move my computer so you can see by the stove a little bit better. If my computer reaches this far. Let's see. All right, so we are over by my stove right now. You're gonna heat up your saucepan with 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. It works for both mac and cheeses.
Did you say 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter?
Yeah, they both have a different smoke point, and I was going to get to that in a second. The reason is they have different points of smoke, which means that you can cook the sauce a little bit shorter, and it also keeps it from like burning. Alrighty. So we are going to start by heating on a medium or so on your stove, whatever that might be.
Are we putting the whole
Let the butter melt and the olive oil melt. We want it to get heated up.
Are we putting in the whole head of cauliflower?
It depends on the size. If it's small, you can use the whole head. If it's big, I'd use 3/4 of it.
Okay, thank you.
Mine was really big, so I used 3/4. So we are all set.
Is 4
Yeah,
tablespoons a 1/4 cup?
Yes, actually it is.
I just want to make sure I do it right.
I know it's one of those measurements that people never think of. So now that our butter is melting ever so gently, make sure you're using unsalted butter. If you're using salted, just make sure later not to add a lot of salted water in or salt into the mix because cheese is salty. We don't want it to be overly salty. So we're gonna
Ashley,
start, yeah.
for the cauliflower, were we supposed to time how long to cook it?
Yeah, I'm timing how long I'm cooking mine, but it's mostly anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes, depending on how big the pieces you cut.
Right, so you want it really soft is what you're looking for, or do you want it more al dente?
Yeah, because we're gonna put it in our little like food processor or mini chopper and like puree it down.
And want to clarify, the time on the cake was 50 minutes?
Yeah, 5-0.
Okay, I had heard 15, so we want to clarify.
Oh no, that would definitely not work.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, no problem. That's what I'm here for. So we have some lovely melted butter and olive oil in here.
Does it matter if you put the butter or olive oil in first?
It doesn't matter which one goes in first. We just need 2 tablespoons of each.
Cool.
So now we have 2 tablespoons and they're melted down on a medium heat. Get a whisk handy. Hopefully you guys have more than 1 whisk. And 4 tablespoons of flour. And you gotta make sure that your 2 cups or your 1 cup and 1 cup of stock are ready before we add in the flour. I'm going to repeat that. Before we add in the flour, make sure that you're either your 2 cups of milk for the classic mac and cheese or 1 cup of stock and 1 cup of milk for the other one are ready to go, because once you start this, you cannot stop, and it's a constant streak.
There's no stock for the classic.
No, but you can make it with stock. I sometimes make it half stock, half milk, depending on how light you want it. It just takes out some of the calories. But if you want it nice and creamy, you can add 2 milk. So everyone raise your hands when you're ready.
So just to clarify, you said it's, for the classic, it's 2 cups of milk and what? Liquid?
We have the melted, it's the 2 cups. You just have to worry about 2 cups of milk, Nancy. And 4 tablespoons of flour. Everyone's gonna have 4 tablespoons of flour. All right, everyone got their liquids? Yes, I see hands, I see faces. Yes, okay. So once you're at the stove, you must have your liquid in your flour. Take your whisk and sprinkle in your flour gradually and constantly start whisking. Do not stop. We are making a roux. It's going to look really weird, kind of wet and sandy and foamy and start to look almost like you made a peach. You want it to look like that. Just keep whisking until it's like a light brown color and there's no lumps. Give it like a minute or so, 30 seconds to a minute. You want the flour taste to cook out. We don't want it to taste raw, floury. So let it cook out a little. And then we are going to gradually add in either our stock and milk or our milk. It doesn't matter which order. But we will gradually, while whisking, add it in. This is a do 2 things at once kind of trick. So I'm gonna whisk and pour the milk all at the same time. You can do a little at a time if you're worried about.
Sorry, do you wait until it gets brown, or it's the golden color okay?
The golden color's good, and it's gonna start thickening up, and it's gonna look weird at first. But just keep adding the milk and whisking.
Okay.
Little at a time. Just a little bit at a time, or a little bit of stock and a little bit of milk at a time. Otherwise, it's gonna get too thick and it's gonna look funny. Yes, there's gonna be chunks at first, but then it'll start to be the smooth mix. It's the thickening agent. It's what's gonna make your sauce nice and thick and creamy. And once it looks fully incorporated and starts looking more like a sauce, we just keep whisking. And once you don't see any lumps, you can stop whisking and use a spoon.
Was the, were we supposed to already pre-shred the cheese? Or are we gonna do that into the sauce?
We are gonna do that at the end, but if you haven't shredded your cheese, now would be a good.
Okay, yeah, amen.
All right, you're just ahead of me, Craig. You're just way ahead of me today. All right, so here's the thing about cheese. I'm gonna go over cheese while we are all standing here at our pots, whisking and stirring away. We are not going to buy the pre-shredded kind. I repeat that, we do not buy the pre-shredded kind when it comes to mac and cheese. Here's why. There are what they put anti-caking agents. If you flip that bag over, you'll see something called potato starch, or there's a few other ones, and they'll say to prevent caking. So there is not a big clump. You do not want to do that because the cheese will not melt and it will not get creamy. This is not something you people want. So this is a job for the children. Give them the block of cheese and let them go to town with the shredder, with the box grater, and let them shred up that. And then just a nice cheddar or a Monterey Jack works really well, as well as anything but mozzarella melt well. You can use Parmesan, Monterey Jack, cheddar. If you want it a little spicy, you can use the one that has the little jalapeno pieces in it. Whatever you like. So as I don't have any more lumps, so I am lowering my heat. When you don't have any more lumps, lower your heat to low. I repeat, lower your heat to low. We do not want to scald or burn the milk. And now we are just going to stir until it gets thick.
All right, for those of us whose butter finally melted and are about to put it in the flour.
Okay, go ahead.
Once we're whisking it, how much milk do you add at a time?
You're making the classic?
Yeah.
So we're gonna add a little bit of time, after you do the 4 tablespoons of flour.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna start whisking that in. And as you're whisking and you let it cook out 30 to 60 seconds until it gets a little brown, then you're gonna gradually pour in the milk. It's gonna look weird. Definitely gonna look a little weird, but keep doing it until you don't have any lumps.
Do you stop pouring it at any point? I guess my question is, like, do you want me to just pour it in slowly, or do I pour some in, whisk for a while, and then pour more in like I'm doing a risotto?
Just keep going and keep whisking. Kind of, it's a 2 things at once process.
Got it.
So, how you know that a white sauce like this is thick enough? You put a finger on the back of a spoon. If it doesn't come together after you put your finger through it, then it is thick enough to use. So I have the sauce, it's all thick, mine's all thick. This is the point where we put in, I'm turning the heat off. Once it's that thick, you turn the heat off. We are gonna put in a pinch of nutmeg. I know this sounds weird, but there's a pinch of nutmeg in every white sauce. And when I mean a pinch, like just a little pinch. And then we're gonna put in a little salt and pepper. Salt, pepper, just a pinch of each.
What did you say a pinch of besides salt and pepper?
Nutmeg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every white sauce has nutmeg in it. You may not taste it, you may not smell it, but it enhances the flavors. So we have that going. I have that turned off. Once your sauce thickens up, you take it off the heat, you turn off the heat, and you take it off. That is when you will add your cheese. This helps the cheese to melt in and it doesn't become stringy. I have some lovely aged cheddar that I mixed up earlier. I shredded up. So you can tell the difference. Like if you look into the camera, you can see the difference when you shred it yourself. And you can control how fine it is and how fine stuff is. I'm gonna mix that in. Do it a cup at a time so that you can make sure everything melts.
Sorry, still a little behind. How long are you whisking the milk for before you put the cheese in?
Until it thickens up. And you do the spoon trick like I did. It'll be nice and thick.
Okay, yeah, that's
Once it's nice and thick, lower it to low. And you can do the spoon trick like this. If it doesn't come together, it's nice and thick.
okay.
What happens if our sauce isn't thickening?
It'll just take some time. It takes longer than you think.
Okay.
And if you use too low of a fat of milk, it won't thick as quickly as you want. So I'm gonna use some Parmesan and cheddar, which I know are both salty, but they're also, one's a sheep milks and one's a cow's milk cheese, which I like the different creamy consistency. So now that my cheese is in my sauce, I'm gonna just set it aside for now. And once all the cheese is in and you mix it all in, set it aside. You can always taste it to see if you want adjustments. Because once the cheese is in, we get to do the spices. That's the fun part. So I have onion powder for the sauce, or you can do real onions depending on what you want. But today we're gonna make it easy. Everyone's gonna do onion powder today.
How much?
She didn't answer. No, she didn't answer.
We're gonna do about a teaspoon of onion powder into the sauce.
Is it okay if we're using a real onion?
That's okay too.
Okay, I chopped one up. I was excited.
Ashley, which?
You're gonna use it. I use a cheddar and a Parmesan because that's what I like. But you can use Monterey Jack, you can use cheddar, you can use anything but mozzarella.
Okay.
You can use pepper jack if you like something spicy. And I'm gonna put in a pinch of cayenne pepper. I know it sounds weird and you might not like heat, but it gives a nice warming feeling on the back of your palate. Just gives you a little warming tingle up the back of your head. Alrighty. Mine's all mixed up. Now the fun part. I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna take that and put that aside because I have all that stuff. We can add things like Dijon mustard. That gives it a nice, lovely tang, which I love. I always add in a little bit of Dijon mustard. When you guys get the recipes, there's several different versions that you can make of the mac and cheese, which is a great thing to do. Most of us, our cauliflower should be cooked now. Whose cauliflower is cooked? Anybody? How's your cauliflower coming?
Well, our milk just got thickened up, so can we start putting in the cheese?
Yeah, just take it off the heat before you do that.
Off the heat, stir it in, and then put in, when do you do the chicken stock? Did you say
The chicken stock was supposed to go in with the milk.
how much?
It was 1 cup of milk and 1 cup of stock if you were using it, or 2 cups of milk.
Oh, I did 2 cups of milk. It must be because I'm not doing the broth. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, it depends on which recipe you're making. I know I'm teaching 2 different recipes at the same time. It might be a little confusing. I'm going to show you, if your cauliflower is nice and tender, we can put it in the food or whichever you like. I'm going to stick mine in the food processor while you do that. How's everybody doing? Any questions so far? Alira?
Nope, we're looking good over here. We had one person who had to leave a little early, but she is going to follow along with the recording later.
No problem. So my cauliflower is all nice and soft and tender. I love it. I have a little food processor. It's a wonderful thing. And then I'm going to just put it all nice and chopped and pureed nice and quickly. I'm going to mute myself for a second while I turn on the food processor because nobody needs to hear that, okay? Just give me 1 second and then we'll go over a few more questions. Get those cheeses and those sauces and make sure you take it off the heat, okay? Then I want to see them. I want everyone to hold them up to the camera for me, okay? Okay. All right, I got my pureed cauliflower to add to my sauce now that it's starting to cool a little. So, who's pureeing their cauliflower?
We're pureeing our cauliflower right now.
Okay, so now that the water's still boiling, now's the time to dump in our pasta. Make sure you give your pasta a big old stir when you dump it in.
All right, quick question on the the non-roux that I'm making. How long should it take to thicken? Because it hasn't changed at all. I feel like I've done something wrong.
It hasn't changed at all?
No, it's still basically milk.
Did you forget the flour?
No, I put the flour in.
It's just, it will thicken up eventually. What
Okay.
kind of milk did you use?
Oh, probably that horrible 2% crap my wife buys.
Well, it
Sorry, not to
should thicken
blame her,
up.
she's not here. What's that?
You should thicken up though.
I can't hear you, sorry, what?
Just keep stirring. It
Amen.
should thicken up. Just keep stirring.
I use
Just
2%
keep
and
stirring.
it thickened up.
Raise your hand if you guys have issues or need to talk. Denise, do you have a question?
No, I was just saying I use 2% milk and it thickened up really well.
Yeah, because it should. All right, I'm gonna open my pasta if I can. do
It has not worked for me as of yet, I'm afraid. But it will, maybe. Who knows? We'll find out.
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you what happened. I'd have to see you making it to tell you. All right, let's drop our pasta in the boiling water and give it a nice big stir. So I'm using these little tiny penne, or you guys can use elbows. Just don't use something like rotini or anything like corkscrewy. You want something that has a small cut to it so that you can build the sauce. So if you're gonna do the cauliflower, take your sauce, take your cauliflower puree, and now start combining a little at a time. So I'm doing mine a little bit at a time. And you know, if your sauce gets too thick, you know, just a hint of the pasta water will loosen it right up.
Ashley, I do have a question.
Yep.
So I used the rice cauliflower that was frozen, and it's small, but should I puree it also? That's what it looks like.
Ashley, you
Yeah.
froze for a quick second.
Yeah.
Frozen.
Again, Denise?
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can you try that again? You have the bad cauliflower. You could probably just puree that if it's cooked.
Right. Okay, yeah, it's cooked. So I could puree it and I'll use my
Yeah.
I use my Vitamix that I bought at the Big E.
Oh, wow. It's been in there a while.
I just got it last year.
Can I just ask, the onion powder, was that supposed to go in the sauce?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just adding our spices to our sauce. How much of the onion powder were we supposed to use?
to that tablespoon, but if you want more, no judgment.
Okay, thank you.
Or cayenne or anything. A little bit of Dijon would be good. If you have a tuna Dijon mustard, gives it a nice tangy hint in the background. It makes it very French, your mac and cheese.
So is it, since I've foolishly misunderstood and chopped up an onion,
Yes.
should I just bin it? Because
No, I mean, you can put it in. The onion might be a little crunchy, but it'll be fine.
I'm not going to risk it. I can't even get the sauce to thicken, so I'm going to follow everything else by the letter.
I think you must have missed something along the way, or maybe not enough flour. I'm not sure.
Could I just go ahead and add more flour till it thickens up? Because I did 4 tablespoons,
There is a risk of doing it that it might get lumpy, but you can try. My recommendation is mix it with like a tablespoon of milk so that it gets a little bit like more of a paste than a sprinkling it in.
Okay. Yeah, there's no difference.
You know,
So I
I
blame
don't
the
know.
milk we get inferior milk down here in Texas. Trust me, it's garbage.
Inferior milk in Texas? Aren't there a bunch of cows down there?
Not for beef cows, man. No milk cows.
I'm gonna make a suggestion. I find what I don't do well with roux is I take a little water, warm water, and put some cornstarch in it, and then pour that into the sauce.
You can do that too. I'm not a big proponent of doing things like that because I don't use cornstarch much. I do health and wellness cooking, so cornstarch doesn't really come into my cooking very often.
And that's what I thought. So, but in a pinch, that's what I've done to help make it thicker.
So you can try that if you want. Or some hot water and flour might do the same thing. So everyone put their cauliflower in their sauce and make sure to keep watching your pasta. Pasta should cook in about 6 minutes or so, 7 minutes. So we're gonna cook the pasta to what you call al dente. Does anybody know what al dente means? Anybody know what the word al dente means in Italian? No one knows? Al dente is Italian for to the tooth, meaning that it should be just a little bit tender. Like, so when you eat it, I should give a little bit because it will cook another minute or 2 in the hot sauce. So drain it, but leave like a half a cup of pasta water before you drain it. So that way we could have, like, in case the sauce is too thick when you mix it. So I'm gonna mix my pasta and my water so you can see what it looks like. And then you guys can tell me what you think. You can tell I'm hungry. I'm eating cheese and pasta while you guys are figuring out your sauce.
Sorry, what are the actual measurements on the onion powder and cayenne and everything else?
Well, you're in Texas. You like things spicy, right?
I
So
do, but my
one
kids don't.
Actually,
Like 1 tablespoon of onion powder usually works out good. And you can just do like a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. It just gives a nice warming feeling. And if you're adding the Dijon, because I'm doing 2 separate recipes at the same time.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
Cake beeped, but it's super jiggly. It's jiggling. The cake.
Yeah, but I want you to check it at 50 minutes, 50, and then it might need anywhere from another 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
But we don't put the spices in until after we've added the cheese, right?
After you add the cheese, but you can put it into the milk if you want. But you also want to see to make sure your milk's thickening up too.
It's occasionally
So
darkening
I
a little bit
always
around the edges. That's about it.
Your pot's too hot then, or you're not stirring enough.
Well,
All
I have
right, so I'm
detailed
gonna
it all.
mix the pasta in the sauce. So let's drain our pastas if they're ready. Are they not ready? I need to drain my pasta. All right. Give me a 1-minute timeout so I can drain my pasta over my sink. I tried to set up the camera so everyone could see everything, but my sink's very far away. So I can't get everyone over there. I'm taking out a little bit of pasta water so that I have it in reserve for when, if things aren't enough. Oh. Yeah, pasta facial over here. My favorite thing in the world. So. Oh. And mix it in. Always put the pasta back in the warm pot. It always helps to get like any excess water or anything off of it. So I have it back in the pot. And as you can see, I've mixed in my cauliflower and my, so it's nice and white and yummy and thick and very, very cheesy. So I'm gonna mix in my pasta. All right, so make sure you fold everything in and it's off the burner so that way you don't have anything like the cheese isn't scalding. Oh, it looks so yummy. I think this is gonna be my dinner tonight too. Oh, so good, so yummy, so creamy. So here's the thing, my sauce is a little thick because it's been sitting a little longer than yours. So I'm gonna put in just a little tablespoon at a time just to loosen it up a little. Plus when you put in the pureed cauliflower, the sauce gets really thick and pureed. You can almost puree any vegetable and add it to the sauce and just change up the flavor profile with the spices. So if there's like pureed spinach, broccoli, want to hide the veggies from the kids, putting it in mac and cheese is a wonderful idea. Alrighty. So I'm gonna get a nice big bowl to show you guys what it looks like. Okay, I have my nice little bowl here. Oh yeah. So, how's everybody coming?
Well, my timer wasn't for my cake. It was actually for my pasta. So my cake is going to be okay, I think.
Well, that's good to know. At least you set timers for things.
We're good.
I was wondering how your timer went off before mine, but you know. Alrighty, nice, hot, steaming, and creamy mac and cheese. It should look relatively similar to this when it's done. Yeah, I made the cauliflower version, so mine's a little creamier. So, who has questions? Craig, are you hanging in with me?
Oh, I'm having about as much success as I did when I made gumbo, but which was we won't get into that. But like, I'll give you an example. When I've been whisking it, this is essentially what it looks like. It doesn't really look thick at all.
Huh.
And I did add more flour, so I'm up to about 6 tablespoons. I'm telling you, it's the crappy milk we get down here, man.
What kind? Yeah, maybe you don't have good cows in Texas.
It's
Just
no
the
hood.
kind you eat.
Tell you what. So how, I mean, essentially, if I add the cheese now, it'll just be kind of like a runny cheese sauce, I guess.
Probably.
But
Yeah, if it doesn't thicken up, it's going to end up being really runny.
yeah.
If your family's ever experimented with nut milks, it will work really well. Or you can try heavy cream. Next time, try like a creamer, heavy cream. I'm sorry, I feel bad. Oh. You know, I have this beautiful mac and cheese. But we could try, let's see, so you had this success with gumbo, so apparently you have issues with roux, am I guessing?
Well, I mean, the problem with the gumbo was I didn't stir the roux for about an hour and a half like you're supposed to. I only did it for about 45 minutes, so it was still dark tan rather than, dark brown. So it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if okra made it thick and slimy and disgusting, but Yeah, roux, I don't know. I'm not, like, I waited until it was sort of light brown and then added the milk, but it does not seem to have, I mean, I don't think I missed anything. 2 tablespoons olive oil, 2 things of butter, 4 of flour, 2 cups of milk. It's all right. My wife is home, so I'm going to blame her.
Okay. Hey, that works. We
She bought crappy milk, so there you go.
blame it on the kids, blame it on the dog.
Amen. When I add the cheese, I assume I should take it completely off the burner?
Yes. Yes, because otherwise it gets really stringy.
Yeah.
You might do better to puree the cauliflower, like do the one with the cauliflower, because that gives it a nice thickness and viscosity. So you may actually do better with one where you puree stuff into it.
Amen. We've been blaming you for the lack of success on our sauce, my love.
Why?
You insist on us buying this crappy skim milk, which is garbage. Yeah, it's her fault.
You would have bought some cold milk because milk is a
Wait,
vegetable.
first you said it was 2% and then you said it was skim milk?
No, it's 2. Well, I call it skim milk. It's 2%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2%.
Go away. Be gone.
Okay, who's doing okay? Can I see anyone's creations yet? I see hands. Who's ready to show me? Michelle, are you about to show me stuff?
Awesome.
Oh, that looks delicious. You guys, looks like you guys had success.
We also had to make it gluten-free because my mom has celiac, so.
Hey, mine's gluten-free too. I just didn't say anything. Mine's brown rice pasta.
Beautiful, everybody.
Allison, yours looks great too. Kristen, that looks amazing. And if you want to keep it warm for the rest of your family, Kayla, that's looking good. You want to keep it warm for your family, just keep it on a low heat in the oven, or you can put it in at 350 for like 20 minutes to heat it up right before you eat. Awesome. Andrea, I can see it. Everyone's looking good. Anybody want to take a bite and tell me what they think? Or maybe don't tell me what you think?
This is amazing. We used peppercorn cheddar. OMG.
Great. See, they made theirs personalized. See how much you can make cooking personalized? Cooking is more about personalizing what you're doing, whereas baking is an exact science. There are no interpretation unless you want to change what nuts you put in a cookie or what kind of chocolate. So who has questions? Let's go over everything before we're finished. I'm going to go over like everything from top to bottom.
And one thing too, I'll share, especially, you know, for people who want to try this recipe again, Ashley sent me the directions or the recipes, so I'll share that with you as well. So Craig, if you want to try it on another day when you have whole milk or a different kind of milk, there will be another opportunity, so don't feel defeated yet.
And my email will be in there, so I will be available to you for questions for a while. So if you guys want to email me questions, I am more than happy to help you with your culinary issues or cooking. Craig, if you want to email me some questions, I can try to help from all the way here in Massachusetts. So I am glad you guys enjoyed it. Send me pictures of your cakes. Send Bella Foodie pictures of your mac and cheese, your family enjoying them just as much as you send when you. I'd love to enjoy it. So I'm going to go over everything real quickly so everyone can eat. So mac and cheese. We always start with a roux, and you want to make sure you do the spoon trick. That's how much you know that it's thickened up. We do wet and dry ingredients when we bake so that we don't have a really tough cake. So that's basically the main tip. We learned how to properly zest a lemon. We learned that we can interpret recipes a little bit differently. You can use a real onion, you can use powders. I made what was the easiest because a lot of people have been having trouble finding onions I found in the store, so I was trying to make it as easy as possible. You can save pots by boiling your cauliflower in the same pot as your pasta because it's all going to the same place. So everyone feel good, feel confident, feel like you can do this? Yeah? Well, I'm still at your disposal for a while, so if you guys want to email or video chat to help you through it again, let me know, okay?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for teaching, and thank you to everyone for being
Thanks,
here.
everybody.
It's so fun to see your smiling faces. And you'll hear from me tomorrow with some follow-up details. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Hopefully you have my contact information, but you can also find me on the WNE website if for some reason that email went missing in action. Thank you guys. I hope to see you at future events. Be sure to also follow Ashley on Bella Foodie. She offers all kinds of different workshops like this for kids, adults, a whole mixture. So yeah, I think that's all for me, unless anybody else has anything else to say before we depart.
Bye, y'all.
Awesome. Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Yes, be well.
Thank you so much. This is a great,
Thank you.
Zoom.
Awesome. Thank
Great
you.
job.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.